I can't believe it. It's almost been a whole week and I've not spoke about Formula One. That disgusting behaviour, absolutely disgusting behaviour. But today I'm going to jump back into it, and something that I've been, I suppose, brewing in my mind over the winter is Sebastian Vettel. And the reason for this is I actually think he's gone under the radar quite a bit with all the changes all over the grid, with Charles Leclerc coming into Ferrari, with even after Melbourne with Valtteri Bottas stepping up to the plate, and people saying could he be in that title fight. I think Sebastian Vettel, after a disappointing weekend in Melbourne, is already slightly on the back foot. Now, don't get me wrong. We've had one race. That's not enough to really make any conclusions for this season. So I'm not really focusing on that. I'm more focusing on the fact if he doesn't win the title this year, will that be his last chance? And we're going to dive into it in a little bit more detail in a moment, but I just wanted to quickly say welcome to the channel if you are new. Here we cover Formula 1, Formula 2 and Formula E. So if you do feel like subscribing, please feel free to do so. So this is Sebastian Vettel's statistics after the Melbourne Grand Prix, his career statistics. 111 podiums, 2,757 points, 221 Grand Prix entered, so that number will become a nice round number this weekend in Bahrain. 4 World Championships, all coming in Red Bull. Or for Red Bull, I should say, 2010, 2011, 2012 and 2013. Since then, no luck with World Championships whatsoever, although he's had plenty of wins at Ferrari, 52 in total for his career, 55 pole positions. The man from Germany, actually, his statistics look okay on paper. However, when you dive into it in a little bit more detail, his time at Ferrari, especially in the last 2 years, hasn't really been that plain sailing. First season he was driving for Ferrari, picked up 3 wins, first in Malaysia, Hungary and then Singapore. In his second season, no wins whatsoever, a really barren season was 2016. Then 2017, that first chance for that title. Got the first win in Australia, then Bahrain 2 races later, won Monaco, a brilliant race to win, Hungary and Brazil, but just 5 races across that season. When I was doing my research for this, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, considering that for the majority of that year, that car was bloody good. That car was really good, and it was a big surprise looking at that. But what was even more of a surprise was last year. The car that, I mean, this is still up for debate, but I think that car was the best car across the season. 5 wins in 21 races for Sebastian Vettel last year. He did get his only back-to-back win of his Ferrari career, which that just blows my mind, and that was in the first 2 rounds of the season in Australia and Bahrain. And what I find, again, bizarrely enough, the time before that where he got back-to-back wins was obviously at Red Bull, but that was the world record stint for most back-to-back wins from Belgium 2013 to Brazil 2013. The whole second half of the season, he won every race. And since then, that form, ever since he's gone to Ferrari, hasn't really seemed to be there. And especially looking at his statistics from last year, he never ever got more than 2 back-to-back podiums. He never did it. He never went 3 races on the bounce getting a podium, which is crazy to think considering that Ferrari was so good. It really is. Now, I'm looking at last year, and the big thing that stands out for me is his last win in Formula 1 was Belgium. His last pole position was also Belgium. He's not won since August last year, which is, again, a crazy thought considering he was 2nd overall in the championship. And this year, again, it's only after race 1, but we went into this year expecting Ferrari to be straight on the pace, especially in Melbourne. A lot of people expected them to be winning that race. Qualifying 3rd in Melbourne, but after a pretty poor strategy decision from Ferrari, a superior Mercedes team, I will say, and supposedly there was some sort of issue going on with Sebastian's car. Ferrari have been a little hush-hush on that one, but again, a disappointing result for Sebastian. Only a 4th place finish is not how he wanted to start the season. And already I was starting to think, is he already put himself on the back foot? Obviously this year, in comes Charles Leclerc. Now I just wanted to throw out, the last time Ferrari won a race was Kimi Raikkonen, which crazy thought, I know, that was last year in the USA. The last guy to get a pole position for Ferrari is also Kimi Raikkonen last year in Monza. So Sebastian Vettel has been on this huge drought, and in comes Charles Leclerc. First weekend, didn't do as well as Vettel. That is great for Vettel. That's exactly what he wanted. Did not upset the balance early doors. There was team orders at play there, and I did do a separate video on that one, and I feel they were fine. I still question the fact they didn't go for the fastest lap point, and that's still, I still find that a little bit bizarre. However, that's in a separate video, so if you want to watch that, you can do, and you want to complain about my thoughts on that, you can do that if you would like. That'll be in the top right-hand corner. However, Charles Leclerc, he looked fine. Made a mistake during the race, went over the gravel, but he did put Vettel under pressure at the end of the race. But as I say, I feel that was more due to Vettel's tyres going off. Leclerc was ordered to stay behind him, and really nothing has been said of it. It was put down to the fact that this car somehow has gone backwards from testing. It's not that Mercedes have got quicker, it's not that Red Bull have gone quicker, it's that this car has gone backwards. And the reason you can tell this is the gap to the midfield. The midfield have made a huge jump up to Ferrari, whereas the midfield's gap to the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull that we can judge from testing, again, can't judge anything from testing, but on average, the long run pace that we use, which is generally one of the better indicators, Ferrari have made a step backwards rather than making, well, the other team's making a step forward, which is alarm bells ringing for the team, considering you'd expect, after two back-to-back years where they could have and maybe should have won the World Championship, this year they need to be on the money. Now, Fernando Alonso, he spent 5 years at Ferrari, 2010 through to 2014, decided to leave in 2015. Now, I've been watching Formula 1 since 2006, so that's a fair chunk of time, really. But when I think of Sebastian Vettel, I still feel that he's pretty new to that Ferrari team. But this year will be his 5th season, 2015 through to 2019. However, I still see Alonso as being there for a longer period of time. That's just my silly brain, I imagine. However, the question I really wanted to dive into today is, will this be his last chance? A lot of factors go into this. First of all, his teammate. If Charles Leclerc, halfway through this year, is really pushing Sebastian Vettel, comes to the end of the year, Leclerc's out qualifying him, Leclerc's out racing him more often than not, Ferrari have the mindset generally of a number 1 and a number 2 driver. Now, will Vettel want to stay around? First of all, will Vettel be able to cope with that pressure in the following year to try and bring it back around? We know in 2014, when a similar sort of thing happened at Red Bull when Daniel Ricciardo came into the team, many people say that, oh, Vettel just ran away from a fight. I see that a little bit differently. I see that as he wanted to move to Ferrari at a certain point, which we heard many times that was in the works, in the pipeline. Fernando Alonso moving on, I think that was a very nice timing for all parties involved there. But it did seem a little bit like the Ricciardo thing had got into his brain a little bit, and I'm sure it did. Will Leclerc do a similar sort of thing? It's a very different setup at Ferrari than it is at Red Bull. And again, I can't stress this enough, that we've only seen one race. But in that one race, Vettel did look like the number 1. And I'm not saying Leclerc looked like a Kimi Raikkonen, because last year Raikkonen outqualified Vettel. But what I'm more trying to get to is that Leclerc needs time. So in order for us to really, I suppose, gauge whether Leclerc is going to be a number 1 driver, I think we're going to have to wait until the very last race of the year, because Ferrari are not going to give him that incredible freedom early on to have or be on the better strategy. I just don't think they will, to be totally honest with you. If he does this time out in Bahrain, out-qualify Vettel, he does it again in China, he does it again in Azerbaijan, yeah, then they might switch it up. But I don't see that happening early doors. I think there's still a little bit of time for growth there. Don't get me wrong, I really rate Charles Leclerc. Vettel, I still rate Vettel, but his mistakes last year really cost him, and I think has really put him on a fine line with Ferrari. Again, if he repeats his mistakes from last year, and if he, I was going to say repeats his mistakes from 2017, but that was a bit of a mixture of his mistakes and Ferrari's mistakes, but if it happens for a third time, Will Ferrari just have enough? Will they say, look, we've got Leclerc now in the team who's matching you? I mean, it's getting silly now. Because they should have won the championship last year. Vettel's constant spins, constant mistakes did cost them the title. Lewis Hamilton, yes, he was on another level in the end, but I feel that was only because Vettel constantly was pirouetting, doing 360s all over the circuit. I really do think that. You look at Germany, that race gave Hamilton so much, I suppose, I was going to say hype, but so much empowerment to say, look, anything is possible. And for the rest of the year, you can see what he did. He just nailed it. Whereas Vettel, the pressure built up more and more and more, and that's what I'm a little bit nervous about. How is he going to be able to cope with a rising star next to him, considering that he's on a very, very thin line with that Ferrari team? So, is it going to be his last chance to win a world championship this year? Again, if Leclerc doesn't quite match him, very possible that next year he could do it. But something I just want to quickly hypothesize about, what happens if Leclerc beats him this year? What happens if Ferrari say, Vettel, you're out the door? What does he do then? And it's something, again, I've been really wondering about over the winter, because I think he's a bit stuck. I think a lot of drivers are stuck at the moment in the driver market, considering a lot of the teams are trying to prep themselves up for 2021, and because of all the millions, gajillions of changes last year in that summer transfer market. Again, if you're new to Formula One, that's not a thing. There's not a transfer market like that. It's not like football where it opens and then closes. It's not like that. But in the summer last year, we saw so many driver changes. I don't see that happening this year because the teams are gearing themselves up for that big rule change in 2021. Where does Vettel go if he's out the door at Ferrari? I think it all depends on Lewis Hamilton, what he's doing. But I think if Vettel's out the door, that's because he's not won a championship. And I'm assuming that means Lewis Hamilton has won a championship. So I don't see him going anywhere if he's on 6 and he wants to chase that 7 titles that Michael Schumacher got. Will Vettel go back to Red Bull? I mean, it's a possibility. If a seat opens up at Ferrari, he could do a swap with Verstappen maybe. I think Red Bull would be quite happy with that, considering their young driver program is a little bit dry at the moment, a little bit barren, and I think they're a little bit vulnerable with Daniel Ricciardo leaving that team. And Gasly, again, only first race, but I think he still needs a little bit more time to ripen in his Formula One career. Red Bull have said themselves openly that they think he needed another year in Formula One. I don't disagree. So he has been rushed fast track through that Red Bull Junior program. So if Verstappen did leave, I think for the first time in a very long time, Red Bull are going to have to try and snatch a driver from outside their driver programs, which Vettel could be an option for them. I don't think Vettel would want to go back, but I think he's got limited options because, let's say Bottas doesn't do great. I think he would actually be a really good fit at Ferrari if they needed a replacement for Sebastian Vettel. Would Vettel go to Mercedes alongside Hamilton? I don't see that happening whatsoever with the likes of Ocon and George Russell waiting in the wings. So where does that leave a space for Vettel? Would he perhaps go to Renault? Again, they've got a really good setup with Ricciardo and Hülkenberg. Would they be willing to jeopardise that? I'm not too sure. Perhaps maybe if Hülkenberg retired. But again, it's the first time in his career he could finally have a competitive car. So I don't see him doing that. So when I say, is it Vettel's last chance? I think Ferrari will be his last chance because that driver market is so tight, he's going to have no other options. So I think 2019 is almost make or break for Vettel because if he breaks down, as in, that not as in literally breaks down, but if he struggles late on with the pressure with Leclerc, I think he could find himself really stuck. And I don't think he's the kind of driver that would want to be known as a number 2 driver, quite like the likes of Kimi Raikkonen has done over the past couple of years. I don't see Sebastian being that sort of driver. Looking at what happened at Red Bull, looking at how he dealt with issues in the past, multi-21, when he was with Red Bull, little incidents like that, he really, I don't want to say likes being the centre of attention, but he doesn't want to be that number 2 driver. He doesn't want to be seen as second best within a team. So I really do think if he doesn't win a World Championship at Ferrari, that is it for Sebastian Vettel. Unless a team comes out of nowhere, a new team comes in 2021 perhaps, maybe a team like, this is very far-fetched, but Racing Point, they find a really good loophole in the 2021 rules. But again, I just don't see Vettel moving on to a team like that. I just don't. And I think he's a little bit stuck, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. A little bit longer video today, but I really enjoyed talking about this one. Something a little bit different, and something now I think not many people have been talking about over the winter. Yeah. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. But that is it from me for today's video. There will be another one later on today. Aren't you guys lucky? The Formula E Zone podcast, where there is a little announcement at the end of the podcast that I've been teasing for the last couple of weeks. More details about that will be out next week. Also, I'll just quickly throw in on this one and the next few videos, I'm going to be away next week, so all my videos are going to be pre-recorded, most likely. So things that happened in Bahrain might be missed out in certain videos, but I'm hoping that won't be the case, and that on Sunday I can really plough through some videos. Blimey, I'm going to be tired. Anyways, thank you for watching. You probably didn't want to hear that, but thank you for watching. And if you did enjoy, please subscribe. There's so many new guys of you joining the channel at the moment. It's big thumbs up from me and a big thank you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.